Hi, it's Katrina. 50 years of waiting, and now NASA's Artemis 2 is about to send humans farther into deep space than we've traveled in a generation. This is the ultimate test flight for the moon, Mars, and beyond. The farthest mission is about to begin. Let's go. The farthest mission begins. We are 41,541 miles from the moon, said astronaut Reid Wiseman, commander of Artemis 2, who was, crucially, sitting in a box pretending to be in space. Reid Wiseman was not actually 41,541 miles from the moon. The moon was a PowerPoint presentation outside a simulator window. But if all goes according to plan, by April 2026, Wiseman and his 3 co-stars will indeed be hurling toward that silvery corpse of an exoplanet in what NASA is proudly calling a test flight that won't actually land anywhere, but will still cost billions and hopefully not explode. So what exactly is this mission? It's basically Apollo 8, but with touchscreens. But all jokes aside, this test flight to nowhere may just launch the future of human space exploration. NASA might be in the middle of a midlife crisis. Just imagine for a second that you're NASA. You've been to the moon, you beat the Soviets, you invented space pen memes, but now you're pushing 60. You've watched Elon Musk steal your thunder, and people think Artemis is either a Greek goddess or a tech startup selling lunar NFTs. Well, Artemis is an ancient Greek goddess, that's true, but the Artemis program is NASA's cosmic comeback tour. Artemis isn't just a sequel to Apollo, who in Greek mythology is Artemis's brother. For NASA, Artemis is the franchise reboot with updated graphics and an eventual Mars expansion pack. Artemis 1 was the unmanned dress rehearsal. There was no crew, no crash, and just one very nervous heat shield. Artemis 2 is where the real drama begins, with sending humans farther into space than any humans in history. While Neil Armstrong and friends landed on the moon, the Artemis 2 crew will circle it. They are going around the moon and back, and they're taking a spaceship that has already proven it sometimes sheds pieces of itself under pressure, but more on that later. But this isn't just moon-chasing nostalgia. NASA's not out here trying to get clicks either. Artemis is about something much bigger. It's all about staying on the moon. It's about building moon bases and living in them. It's about mining moon ice and building a launch pad for spaceships to more easily reach Mars. Artemis 2 is the next phase in human space travel. This is it, guys. This is our first real step toward living off-world. As Lori Glaze, NASA's acting associate administrator for the Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate, put it, unlike Apollo, this time when we go to the moon, we want to stay. That's right, my space-loving friends. No more one-night stands with the moon. Artemis is about long-term lunar commitment. NASA is about to lock that big slice of Swiss cheese down. Now, how would you like to meet the crew? Not personally, because I don't have their phone numbers or anything, but I do know who is going to be on board. Reid Wiseman is the mission commander. He's calm, experienced, and looks like he could play a test pilot in a Tom Clancy movie. Victor Glover is the mission pilot. He's a SpaceX veteran, laser-focused, and allegedly able to sleep through simulated emergencies. Christina Koch is the mission specialist. She boasts the longest single space flight by a woman and is also very likely to win against anyone in a staring contest. Jeremy Hansen, Canadian Space Agency rep, will be bringing the maple-flavored diplomacy. These 4 have been training since mid-2023. They have mastered the SLS systems, studied every wire in the Orion capsule, and practiced how to survive in a floating tin can the size of a walk-in closet. The last part isn't hyperbole either. The Orion's habitable volume is just over 330 cubic feet, which is about the same size as a Sprinter van. Yeah, brutal. Those off-grid living folks you see in a van with 7 dogs can at least, open the door and go outside. But on this mission, going outside would be a little catastrophic. I hope nobody on board is claustrophobic. The job of these 4 astronauts is simple. They don't even need to get out of the ship. Just fly around the moon and come home alive, collecting precious data on how the spacecraft and their bodies handle deep space. That's it. That's all they have to do. Now, let's talk machinery. The Space Launch System, or SLS for short, is NASA's new mega rocket. It's a Frankenstein's monster of shuttle-era parts and brand new technology, welded together with the hope that it won't explode on the launch pad. It's expensive, overbuilt, and beautiful. Basically, the Cadillac of rockets. Sitting on top is the Orion capsule. It's a sleek, cone-shaped throwback to Apollo, but with modern amenities like digital displays and zero chance of Neil Armstrong ghost sweat. Orion is designed to endure deep space. It's what will carry the astronauts on a looping trajectory beyond the far side of the moon, farther from Earth than any human has ever been. That is, if the heat shield holds. During Artemis 1, engineers noticed that the capsule's heat shield, made from a material called avcoat, didn't gently ablate like it was supposed to. Instead, it came off in angry chunks, like a croissant being ripped apart. There were even holes. Luckily, no one was on board Artemis 1. But this was a problem. NASA responded as NASA always does, with panic, wind tunnels, and very expensive foam. After months of analysis, they discovered the culprit. Gas buildup was to blame. The buildup was caused by the skip entry maneuver, where Orion bounced off the atmosphere like a stone across a lake. So for Artemis 2, no more skipping. The trajectory will be a simpler loft path to reduce re-entry heat and avoid turning the crew into barbecue. The mission isn't even going to be very long. Artemis 2 will last just under 10 days. It's actually short enough that I can give you the entire itinerary right here, right now. Day 1, liftoff. The SLS screams to life, burns through half the national budget in 3 minutes, and hurls Orion into Earth orbit. Day 2, slingshot maneuver. The capsule fires its engine and leaves Earth behind, entering deep space on a free return trajectory. Days 3 to 6, moon flyby. Astronauts get one shot at making lunar observations while desperately trying to find any evidence of an alien base on the dark side of the moon. I hope at least one of them is keeping their eyes peeled. Days 7 to 10, the return journey. Throughout the mission, the astronauts will test Orion's systems, monitor communication protocols, and practice emergency scenarios. That includes decompression drills, life support failure simulations, and figuring out how to functionally pee in microgravity while wearing 300 pounds of tech. Victor Glover has already slept in the simulator just to get used to the ambient noise of Orion's life support system, which he described as a heartbeat. Charming or deeply unsettling, I'm not sure which. This mission is all about testing, and the humans are being tested as much as the systems are. NASA views the human body as another spacecraft system, one with emotions, hair, and wildly unpredictable habits. That's why Artemis 2 is crammed full of experiments, most of which involve poking the astronauts with needles or tricking them into running space obstacle courses. Sleep studies will monitor their mental health, because being locked in a cosmic shoebox with 3 other people can probably feel a little like a psychological horror show at times. Blood and saliva samples will be taken before, during, and after flight to track biomarkers and stress hormones, while balance tests will measure how well astronauts can walk in a straight line after 10 days of orbital ballet. NASA's Stephen Platt said, and I quote, "The most complex machine that's going on the mission is the human," which is true. Humans complain, they panic, they require snacks, and most critically, they break in ways that machines don't. Humans are horribly unreliable, which is probably why your job is about to be outsourced to a humanoid AI robot. Sorry, everybody. One of the cooler biological experiments is avatars. But no, it has nothing to do with blue aliens. These are 3D printed tissue chips that mimic human organs. Artemis 2 will fly with beating heart tissues and tiny lung models to study how radiation affects them. Nothing says cutting-edge science quite like strapping miniature artificial humans to a rocket and launching them at the moon. It's going to be awesome. It's also going to be really overwhelming for everyone involved. You would think circling the moon would offer endless opportunities for science. Sitting in a ship all day, surely the astronauts would have oodles of time. But they don't, and they won't, because the astronauts will only have 3 hours of dedicated lunar observation time. That means only a 3-hour window to analyze the actual moon, where they're going. It's like getting recess for only 5 minutes. Why deprive the astronauts of moon time? Because the rest of the trip is filled with chores. So many chores, your teenager self would have a meltdown of biblical proportions. Still, those 3 hours of moon time are precious. According to NASA lunar scientists Kelsey Evans-Young and Noah Petro, just having human eyes on the moon is game-changing. Cameras can miss subtle colors and textures that humans spot easily. Humans might identify mineral differences or lava flows that robotic missions overlooked. Plus, each astronaut sees color slightly differently, which means wise men might spot something that Glover doesn't. Say a slight reddish tinge in a crater wall or the subtle green glow of ET's blinking light. It's also kind of awesome that they'll be seeing parts of the far side of the moon that no human has ever observed in person. That's a big deal and a historical first. Can we all put aside our differences for 5 minutes and agree that physically seeing the dark side of the moon is a big step? When it comes to motivations, there is a reason why NASA is doing this, other than just because it's cool. They need to fly around the moon to practice. That's the biggest reason, because practice makes, say it with me, perfect. Practice makes perfect. You don't build a moon base without testing your gear first. Artemis 1 tested the machines. Artemis 2 tests the people. Artemis 3 is going to be the touchdown, the day humans move from Earth to the moon. Another big reason for the Artemis 2 mission is radiation data. The deep space radiation environment is unforgiving. Artemis 2 will gather critical biological data from outside Earth's magnetic field, the first time scientists have done this with humans since 1972. Remember, it's preparation for Mars. Everything here, from living in close quarters to handling systems autonomously, is rehearsal for Mars. That's the long game. NASA wants to be the organization responsible for building the first human city on Mars. They don't care if it takes another 100 years, but they intend to keep working on it. Artemis 2 won't plant a flag. It won't build a base or harvest moon ice or laser-etch poetry onto the lunar surface, but it will send 4 humans into the deepest stretch of space we have ever dared to fly. It will test our ships, our bodies, our patience, and our science. And it will light a path forward, not just to the moon, but to Mars. And in the immortal words of Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. The 30,000-year mission. Voyager 1 left Earth in 1977 with less computing power than a modern smartwatch and a dream bigger than our species had ever dared. Its mission was simple, at least on paper. Voyager 1 was to take a grand tour of the gas giants, relay pretty pictures back home, and quietly fade into the void. Instead, it became humanity's first interstellar ambassador. After swinging past Jupiter and Saturn like a cosmic hitchhiker catching gravitational boosts, Voyager 1 flung itself out of the planetary suburbs at an astonishing 38,000 miles per hour. That's 11 miles a second, which is fast enough to propel Voyager out of the solar system. Unless someone invents warp speed this century, Voyager will be the first object made by human hands to exit our solar system. That is mind-blowing. It's like throwing a rock, and then the rock just keeps going for thousands of years. Humans have launched something into space that is on a mission that might outlive our whole species. Welcome to the Cosmic Ultra Marathon. The only one running is Voyager 1, who currently happens to be more than 15 billion miles from Earth. 15 billion, with a B. That is so far away that radio signals take over 22 hours to reach it, even traveling at light speed. In 2012, the spacecraft famously crossed the heliopause, the boundary where the solar wind is no longer strong enough to push against the interstellar medium. NASA declared it was the beginning of Voyager's journey through interstellar space. In other words, it left our little friendly cluster of planets and embarked into the great unknown, speeding towards nothing and everything. But it still has a long way to go before actually leaving the solar system. Crossing the heliopause is like stepping off your porch and declaring you've left your house. Technically true, but you're still on the property. Voyager 1 is still under the gravitational spell of the sun. The final hurdle, the moment Voyager crosses from grass to sidewalk and officially leaves the solar system, will be after it passes through the Oort cloud, which is a massive spherical shell of icy debris that marks the actual edge of our solar dominion. It's almost like a force field of icy pebbles encircling us. Probably. I say probably because the Oort cloud isn't something you can see. It's a theory backed by mathematics and the suspicious behavior of certain comets. Scientists think it is a cosmic graveyard of ancient leftovers, a vast halo that begins about 1,000 AU, meaning astronomical units from the Sun, and may extend as far as 100,000 AU. For reference, Voyager 1 is currently around 160 AU from the Sun. That's not even 1% of the way there. Voyager has a very long way to go, and then there's the issue of clearing the Oort cloud. Because if it is what scientists think it is, it's basically a minefield. Voyager passing through it will be like sending someone blindfolded, stumbling through a real minefield. If Voyager 1 hits something, it's game over, so let's not even put those bad vibes into the universe. If it maintains its current velocity, Voyager 1 will reach the inner edge of the Oort cloud in about 300 years. That's around 10 generations of humans. So unless you manage to get your consciousness into a robot, fat chance of being alive when this happens. An even fatter chance of being alive when Voyager leaves the Oort cloud. It won't fully exit this frigid sphere for another 30,000 years. That's how long it will take to truly leave the gravitational influence of our solar system. That's longer than the entire Dune series, the book series that spans actual millennia. To put it into a more archaeological perspective, 30,000 years ago, Neanderthals were still alive, and Homo sapiens were still being hunted by cave lions and trampled by mammoths. So yeah, there's gonna be a bit of a wait, but make no mistake, this is humanity's longest, farthest, and most ambitious mission. What other organization launches a mission that will last until humans have evolved into hyper-intelligent octopuses? Even after slipping out of the solar system in 30,000 years, Voyager 1's journey won't be over. In 40,000 years, it'll drift past a red dwarf star named Gliese 445, a mere 10 light-years away. It's our very own cosmic neighbor. But there will be no fireworks, no U-turn, and no selfies. In 40,000 years, Voyager will be a trash can floating through the endless void. Voyager 1's nuclear batteries are expected to die sometime around 2030. After that, it will float in utter darkness as a cold, lifeless probe carrying a golden record, a time capsule etched with greetings, music, and images from Earth. Voyager 1's golden record is designed to outlive not just our species, but possibly our entire planet. Conceived by a team led by Carl Sagan, the record was a wildly ambitious mixtape for the universe, pressed with the sounds and images of Earth. It contains everything from greetings in ancient Sumerian and modern Chinese to the sound of a kiss, the crackle of fire, the rush of surf, and a recording of a mother comforting her child. There's also music. You've got Bach, Beethoven, gamelan from Java, panpipes from Peru, and even Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good. It's a veritable musical smorgasbord that I'm sure any alien civilization would be happy to find. The records are also etched with 116 images, showing DNA, human anatomy, a woman licking an ice cream cone, and a grocery store. You know, all the things an alien civilization might look for in a planet. And our mathematical diagrams and instructions for how to play the disc. I mean, it comes with instructions. The cover includes a pulsar map pinpointing Earth's location in the galaxy, just in case the finders are feeling adventurous. Designed as an introduction to life on Earth, the Golden Record was never truly about being discovered by aliens, as lots of folks don't think it will ever be found. It was more about the meaning. It was a declaration, hurled into the dark, that someone was here. The Golden Record was Earth's way of doing the "Earth was here" graffiti on the bathroom stall of the universe. Do I hope aliens find it? I'm leaning towards no. What if they use the information to send a war fleet to Earth and enslave us all? No thanks. Carl Sagan once said the spacecraft will be encountered and the record played only if there are advanced spacefaring civilizations in interstellar space. He called it a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean. I think I like that better than my cosmic graffiti reference. So despite being deaf, mute, and drifting alone, Voyager 1 still inspires us. It is the most distant relic of human ambition, a relic of the analog age wandering the void, and it will still be wandering when all of our bones have turned to dust. The Astonishing Endurance of Cosmonaut Valeri Polyakov. In the 1990s, while most of the world was worrying about floppy disks, Y2K, and whether the internet was a fad, one Russian doctor turned cosmonaut spent 437 consecutive days, or 14 months and 17 days if you'd prefer, floating in low Earth orbit. No weekends off, no coffee breaks with gravity, no breathable atmosphere outside the walls of the floating metal canister. For most people, it would be hell. For Valeri Polyakov, it was just another day at the office. Valeri's mission was as brutal as it was groundbreaking. He was tasked with proving that a human could survive in space long enough to make the journey to Mars and back. He didn't just survive, he survived 90s style. When Polyakov strolled out of the landing capsule after over a year in space, he smoked a cigarette and knocked back a glass of brandy. That was just how it got done in the 90s. Now let's take a deeper look at the man who still, to this day, holds the record for the longest space mission ever. While it's true people have spent more cumulative time in space, nobody has stayed for 437 consecutive days since Valeri. Not even close. Born in the city of Tula in Soviet Russia, Polyakov was a physician specializing in space medicine, a field that sounds like science fiction. His whole career was geared toward one question: what does long-term spaceflight do to the human body and mind? His first spaceflight in 1988 lasted a respectable 240 days. But it was his second stint aboard Mir station, the old Russian version of the ISS, from January 1994 to March 1995 that made him a living experiment. The plan had been a full 16 months, but NASA scheduled a visit to Mir station, so his stay was cut short. And I use the word short loosely, seeing as he went home early after 437 days, the longest uninterrupted spaceflight in human history. During that time, Polyakov orbited the Earth over 7,000 times, exercised 2 hours a day, and kept a meticulous medical log of everything from his immune system to his dreams. In essence, he was his own lab rat, and the results would redefine the boundaries of human endurance. What do you suppose happens to a person's body after that long in zero-G? To be frank and a little obvious, zero gravity messes you up. The human body evolved to stand on Earth, not float through the vacuum of space like a loaf of bread. Polyakov's spine elongated by 2.5 inches, making him almost 6 feet 5 inches tall. So if anyone out there would like to grow a bit, just go be an astronaut and hang out in space for 14 months. Easy peasy, you'll gain nearly 3 inches. For Polyakov, the extra height wasn't great though. He was already over 6 feet tall and could barely fit into his custom re-entry chair. As you might imagine, the ride back down was not roomy or comfortable. More surprising was what didn't happen. Despite over a year of microgravity, medical scans found no lasting damage to his cognitive functions. There was real fear that his brain might turn to mush or that his emotions would collapse, but he was perfectly fine. Plus, he grew 2.5 inches. Polyakov conducted 25 separate life science studies while aboard Mir, analyzing muscle loss, lung and immune system function, blood chemistry, neurovestibular balance, nutritional intake, and psychological resilience. Through it all, he was totally fine, although his return to the surface was a little rough. According to a 1998 study, the first 2 weeks back were bumpy. Polyakov experienced a low mood and mental fatigue. Scientists chalked it up to a neurological hangover from re-entering gravity after so long in space. And they were right. By month 2, he was back to normal and feeling like himself. But I think people can relate. Don't most people experience a low mood when they come back from vacation? Or maybe he had culture shock. Imagine being alone for that long and coming back to a bunch of fanfare. The study found that after the initial psychological wobble in the first 3 weeks in orbit, his mood, workload tolerance, and overall cognitive function returned to pre-flight levels and stayed there for the next 13 months. He showed no long-term performance deficits, even 6 months after landing. When asked why he insisted on walking out of the capsule under his own power, cigarette in hand, Polyakov responded, "That was pretty much the goal of the flight. I had to show that it is possible to preserve your ability to function after being in space for such a long time. Mission accomplished." But the same definitely can't be said for everyone. While Polyakov took a year in space like a champ, someone else might have a complete mental breakdown. Ever tried to get groceries only to have a panic attack mid-aisle? You would probably not fare particularly well in space. Polyakov died in 2022 at the age of 80, but his 437-day orbit stands not just as a record, but as a proof of concept. Humans can survive in zero gravity. And thanks to Polyakov, scientists know it can be done without going insane, without collapsing from muscle atrophy, and without turning into a pile of soggy bones. With new missions to Mars on the drawing board and commercial space stations on the horizon, Valeri Polyakov's record might one day be broken, but not yet. Juno, NASA's most ghosted probe. There's something deeply poetic, tragic even, about flinging a billion-dollar spacecraft across 400 million miles of empty space, only for it to go dark while no one is manning the phones. This is the curious case of Juno, NASA's long-serving, scientifically heroic, governmentally abandoned spacecraft currently orbiting Jupiter, which, as I'm sure you know, is very far away. The problem with Juno, which hasn't traveled as far as Voyager but is still way out there, is the government. Because when the government money flow ends, so does the science. And right now, Juno is in limbo. In 2011, Juno was launched aboard an Atlas V rocket, aiming for the king of the gas giants, our good old pal Jupiter. After a leisurely 5-year, 1.7 billion mile commute, Juno arrived in July of 2016. It seems simple, right? Strap a probe to a rocket, shoot it off, and then sit back and wait while it travels nearly 2 billion miles. NASA makes it seem like a cakewalk. Juno's original job was really easy. It just needed to survive 37 orbits in 20 months while studying Jupiter's atmosphere, magnetosphere, and inner structure. These are basic icebreaker studies when meeting a new planet. 37 orbits was supposed to be it. But NASA repeatedly kept finding new reasons to keep the probe spinning, which is great. As long as it's there, right? Why not? More science is good, almost always. First, they wanted to study the rings, then study the moons, then grab some magnetic field data. There was always another thing that the team could do to make more scientific breakthroughs, so naturally they kept pushing the envelope. Why wouldn't you? By 2021, Juno's mission was upgraded from interior decorator of Jupiter to all-purpose interplanetary recon unit. It was now snooping on the moons, Europa, Ganymede, and Io like a nosy neighbor with a telescope and too much free time. Juno was supposed to retire on September 30th, 2025. So it's not September anymore. The mission termination date has now passed. Juno's mission is supposed to be over. But there is an issue going on at Mission Control, and no one even knows if Juno is still functioning or not. It could be dead. Why does nobody know what's going on? Because the US government shut down and NASA staff are legally barred from answering emails. The only exception is if a rogue comet suddenly threatens Washington, D.C., or the Martians make an appearance. The US government has NASA in a sleeper hold. NASA's official statement, when not auto-generating out-of-office replies, is that Juno is not a presidential priority and therefore not guaranteed operational support. If the president doesn't care, it's not getting any attention. And that really is the bottom line here. One of humanity's farthest-reaching emissaries, one of our most distant probes doing serious scientific work, is now MIA because the president thinks it's boring. It's quite an interesting turn of events because years ago, when the mission launched, no one saw this coming. They anticipated freak accidents in space, alien flybys, radiation, solar flares, but not this. And now, scientists are struggling to figure out what happens when you send a spacecraft so far that it outlasts not only its own mission plan, but also the political attention span of the humans who launched it in the first place. Juno has journeyed past the asteroid belt, survived Jupiter's radiation belts, stared into the volcanic heart of Io, and delivered crisp portraits of Europa's icy shell. But the big, beautiful piece of machinery might now be doomed by federal paperwork. You thought it would be a malfunction, but really, it's just bureaucracy. Meanwhile, NASA's shiny new Europa Clipper, which launched in October 2024, is still doing its slow burn toward Jupiter and will arrive in 2030. If Juno goes dark, it will suck about as bad as your favorite show being canceled one season away from the finale. It will be a huge waste of technology, time, money, and scientific progress. But at least there will only be a 6-year data gap before Europa Clipper reaches the big gassy ball, so the game isn't over yet. Even if the political climate remains hostile to science for a few more years, there's no stopping the newest probe from completing its almost 2 billion-mile journey to a distant world. Until Congress coughs up an appropriations bill or someone remembers where the switch is, Juno's fate remains weirdly Schrödinger, both active and defunct until someone looks at it. Would you ever be brave enough to venture into deep space? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out more awesome videos from the channel. See you soon. Bye!